we've got kids hitting, biting, and power struggles when they don't get what they want, and there's a meltdown, lots of screaming and defiance when my daughter doesn't get her way, separation anxiety, best ways to handle not getting what they want. So we've got a lot of power struggles, angry feelings, and them either biting or hitting. So at least Kyla and Lindsay, you know you're not alone. Other people are experiencing this too, screaming defiance. Amber wants the best ways to handle not getting what they want. Okay, so great to see you all. Really, really honored to have you here. So let's just dive right in. So the first thing I want you to think about in terms of helping our kids manage their emotions is that we are indeed trying to teach them how to manage the emotions. We're not going to be focused on how to have them not have the emotion. Meaning, I get it. I mean, I'm a parent of two kids. There are so many times I'm like, why couldn't he just not get so angry? Or why does she have to get so sad? This is not a big deal. But the truth is, we are feeling humans. That's a part of our human existence. And our kids land on this planet, unfortunately, with lots of innate skills, but not innately knowing how to name or manage those emotions. So that is our top goal. So the top two things that we're focused on in terms of helping them is, first of all, name it. We say we name it to tame it. As kind of silly or small as that may be, it's really huge to start helping our kids build their vocabulary of what it is they're feeling. So the first thing I want to say is, if you haven't yet developed some sort of handout like this, picture in your home environment, I really recommend that you do so. This I found just by Googling or looking on Etsy. I think I literally just Googled feeling faces for kids, and many, many different options came up. If you're looking for something in a certain color scheme that matches your home, or you like it to be simple and just have a couple of feelings, you see certain ones that really match for your kid, I recommend that you start having something in your house that's a chart that shows different feelings, and that you're regularly looking to identify feelings. Here's another option of a version that you could have. How are you feeling? They do say the more you have actual feeling faces instead of just abstract thoughts like red, yellow, green, is really more helpful the younger the children are. So many of you having around 2 to 3 year olds, I would recommend something like this, or the other chart that I showed you that shows faces. And then when our kids are having emotions, I want to offer you tonight one top skill that helps name the emotion and walk them through how to calm down in that moment without just saying, you need to calm down. It walks them through how to calm down. Now, outside of the moment, there are also different things that we can be doing to help it go better. So first, let's talk about outside upset moments. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna go ahead and mute you. So our protocols, we just kind of all stay muted, and go ahead and unmute if you want to ask a question or add something, but otherwise we'll stay muted. As I'm talking, by the way, I'm also keeping track of the chat box, so feel free to add comments or questions in there, since I know our time is just real short here. So when we talk about like Amber and Dee, in terms of you guys being concerned around kids having separation anxiety, or having a hard time when they don't get what they want, there's a couple things that I want you to think about doing outside of the moment. And that is to think about, what can we do to have a routine that they can lean into. So for separation anxiety and the emotions around that, one of the top things every preschool teacher will tell you is, have a plan for how you're going to say goodbye, and be kind and firm with following through on that. So when we get to school, I'm going to make sure we connect with one key teacher that you like, or one key friend, and then we're going to hug. I'm going to give you maybe the kissing hand. There's a book about a raccoon, The Kissing Hand. You can have my love with you all day long if you're missing me. Then let's do our little fist bump goodbye or something, or a squeeze hug for 10 seconds to fill your heart up with all my love and leave. If there's sadness and no, 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 please don't go, it is really, every preschool teacher will tell you it's easier if you trust that you've had your clear goodbye, you've said how much you love them, and you leave. And then check in with the school. If that is they're screaming for hours and hours, that's a different story, but most often that works pretty well. One other piece you can think of with separation anxiety is helping them to have a transition object. So what can you do with that feeling? We're looking at what's the feeling and how can we enable them to manage that feeling. So my son in kindergarten was having a really hard time with separation. I'd been a stay-at-home mom, like, with him every day of his life pretty much. And so one thing that comforted him was his blankie, and we took a little scrap of some ribbon that felt like the edge of his blankie and put it in his pocket each day so that he could calm himself down with that little, what we call a transition object. So something that felt like the comfort of home. Some people will do like a t-shirt of mom's on a teddy bear at preschool so that if they want to like smell mom or have some sense or of dad, you could have a transition object like that. So Dee, put in the comments if you have any follow-up questions or comments on what I've said there. Now, in terms of handling not getting what you want, that's what we're going to get into, or being angry, like Lindsay and Kyla were mentioning. We're going to dive into that process now. So when our kids don't get what they want or they're angry about something, this is a process that I want to suggest to you. I'm going to bring up this handout that I put in the chat box and walk through this just a little bit. So there's a lot of words here. I'm going to skip outside of these words for a second just to make it a little more simplified. You can come back to those descriptions later. But the process looks like this. If a child is upset, I want you guys all for just a moment to stand in their shoes. Actually, I'm going to take your eyes off of that handout. Know that that's what we're coming back to in a second. I want you to stand in your child's shoes for just a moment and imagine that you are feeling really mad and it's because you're not getting what you want. You wanted to have that doll that the other kid is playing with, or you wanted to be able to go outside and your teacher saying, preschool teacher saying it's nap time, or you're on the sand out on the playground and you wanted to be the next one on the swing and someone else is getting on that swing. And imagine me saying, coming up to you and saying, hey, that is not okay. We need to share. Calm down. You need to calm down. That is not okay to hit. Notice what you find yourself thinking, feeling, or deciding. Also, if I were to come up to you and say, hey, 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 whoa, take a breath, stop, please. Let's just calm our bodies. Whoa, come on, stop. Notice what you're feeling there. And then third situation, imagine that same situation and you hear a parent or adult come up to you and say, whoa, Klaus, you seem mad. What can we do to make this better? So if you're willing to unmute or share in the chat box, what did you find yourself thinking, feeling, or deciding in my first two responses versus the last response? Let's start with the first response. What were you thinking, feeling, or deciding in my first two responses to you? Amber says, please don't talk. That makes me feel worse. What else? Anyone else willing to unmute or type in the chat? What did you feel when I was telling you to stop? Telling you to, yeah, Lindsay said irritation. Because the first two made me really indignant and feel like fighting back to justify my feelings. Yes. So how about the second or the third option? When I was talking slowly, had pauses, and named your feelings first before problem solving. What did you find yourself thinking or feeling or deciding? Mike, since you're on screen, are you willing to say?
Yeah, I'm kind of the opposite.
Mhm,
Um, if I feel myself getting frustrated or angry at something, and someone just says, "Hey, cool it down," I normally just snap out of whatever I was feeling and then cool down.
mhm. So you might so then you might take that default action with your kids because it is what works for you as an adult?
Yeah.
Did you notice anything different in this experience, just standing in this moment and hearing it from me and you being in the kids' shoes?
Yeah, a little bit.
What
And
yeah, what did you feel
I
on that 3rd time?
the whoa, low, and slow seems to really resonate. Um, instead of an aggressive correction, working with the child to figure out a resolution.
So you would have been feeling, like, less aggressive and maybe more open to resolution.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And
Mhm.
thank you for sharing the other part too, because that's a really good perspective too. I really appreciate that. Kyla said, or Amber said, the pauses and the validation really felt so good and I calmed down quickly. Dee said, I felt calm. Lindsay says I felt very validated. So those are all the points. What we're trying to get at is we want the children to know all feelings are allowed and we can then problem solve. Like Mike goes there maybe more easily and logically. Other kids might need a little physiological pause to then get into the snap out of it and let's go a different direction here. So if you have a kid that lashes out quickly, this is a strategy that I recommend. So whoa, low and slow, the template, the recipe, it really is like making muffins. I want you to think of not going off of this recipe that it's whoa or something like that. Like hold on, let's pause for a second. Something like that that just stops. You're not jumping right in with the advice right away. And you're saying, "Whoa, you seem feeling weird." Again, that's where you can lean in on having something like a feeling chart if you need to work on growing your own feeling words instead of like, well, you seem like you thought that guy was being a jerk to you. That's not a feeling word. You seem frustrated. Work on practicing how to actually name a true feeling there. So it's just 3 words. Or you can say, I notice you're having a hard time with that. And the kid may have more to say. Yeah, it just wasn't fair. I wanted my turn and it's not right and he shouldn't get to have it. You can continue to give acknowledgement statements here and really the essence of it is when you acknowledge, it doesn't mean you're saying that thing is right. Like, yeah, you did deserve to get down the slide instead of that kid. It doesn't mean you're saying that. It just means you are naming what they're feeling and thinking and wishing. And if they need more space there, I'm gonna give you some other ideas for what to do in that place. And then the goal at the end is that we get to a place where we see them kind of go, "Yeah, you get it." And then you're able to say, "What can we do to make this better?" Another thought after you've calmed the child down is if they've then had anger at school, Kyla, like your situation, or others that are saying that, is you can talk through, guy, buddy, can we problem solve? What are some ideas of what you can do when you're frustrated? And one of my favorite ways to do this, I'm just trying to look to see. is to make something like a anger, a feeling wheel of choices. This is from like the 80s, so it's a little old school, but you can make your own. And the advice, this comes from Positive Discipline, that says, do not copy this. This is just to give you an idea, but make your own. Sit down with your child outside of an upset moment and say, boy, at school, sometimes we get mad at friends, don't we? Getting mad is okay. All feelings are allowed. Well, what else can we do that keeps our body safe and keeps everyone else's body safe? So you might take a piece of paper and just, trace a plate or a potted plant or whatever, make a few spokes. The younger they are, the less spokes. So maybe a 2-year-old would have just 4 quadrants, and say, what can we do when we're mad at school? And maybe there's like a calm down corner space or a crash corner. I could ask a teacher for help. I could grunt and say, "Oh, I'm mad." Or I could walk away. Or I could ask my friend to stop. So make sure that these are real ways to deal with anger that aren't just, you could just remind yourself that your friend's a nice person and they deserve a turn too. That's too cerebral. We want to stay really, how would we appropriately get out anger if we could put ourselves back in a 2-year-old body? You're allowed to grunt, you're allowed to stomp your anger or ask for a hug or tell the person, please stop. Let's make it really concrete ideas of what else they can do. So then again, when you're in the moment with them, we want to practice this. What my philosophy is, we teach it, we practice it, and we praise when we catch that right replacement behavior. So make sure you practice. You can practice some moments at home of like, okay, let's say you're getting really mad at school and I just came up to you and I took that crayon that you were about to use to color with. I took the blue and you were wanting blue, and you look at me and you're mad. Let's practice. What can we do? I wanted that. We'd say, teacher, I wanted that. So giving the replacement actions of how they can manage and solve the problem, manage the emotion and how they can solve the problem. 2 key pieces. Questions, comments about thinking of using the whoa, low, slow, and about this template of how to, outside of the moment, brainstorm with your kid other ways to manage their feelings. D says, could you touch a little more about separation anxiety and transitions? Is the object something they take from home to daycare? Yes. Does it stay at daycare? Up to you. It could be something that stays at daycare. We did have like a little extra piece of the ribbon that stayed at school in case he lost his little one in his pocket. What about crying and screaming and kicking for 30 minutes? It's hard for me to leave her in that state. So I will say I had another family that made one of these wheel of choices around the separation. So let's make a plan on what you can do when you're sad that I've left. You can ask a teacher for a hug. You can, touch your soft whatever. You can go hug the teddy bear that we left mom's shirt on. So giving options, moving their brain to choices as opposed to you versus nothing is just a really clever brain trick. So that's why if we can make a wheel of choices with the child at home and share it at preschool or make it together in a moment at drop off with the preschool, what can you do when I leave to help you? Great. Amber says, I love that. I will create one right away. Other questions and follow-up comments about whoa, low, and slow, or the wheel of choices? Okay. So let me just offer a few last thoughts from from the handout, because this half hour has gone by quickly, but I'm so honored to have met you all. And I do want to just highlight that if you would like me to follow up with you at all, I do offer parent coaching one-on-one, where insurance can sometimes take care of the expense. You might just have a small copay, or I have a group coaching program, which actually is starting right after this. It's from 8 to 9 p.m. on Tuesday evenings, and we have a daytime option. But if that's something you'd want to follow up with me at all about, please just, you can change in the chat to just sending to me directly, and you can send me a message there with your email, or you can check out sustainableparenting.com and you'll see a link there to be able to schedule a free consultation call with me, and we can follow up more personally after this. Was someone unmuting wanting to ask a question? Looking. Okay. Well, let's round out with just some common questions I get on this topic. One, what isn't validation showing them that they can get away with being rude or not listening? I think we've already talked about that. The second is, what if these emotions flare up due to a limit that we have set for them? And one of my favorite things is knowing that we can hold both the validation and the boundary. And one of my favorite sentences that really sums that up nicely is, I love you, and the answer is no. I see you nodding there, Brenda, so I can tell you're in agreement with that philosophy. Did you have a question or comment that you wanted to add? No. Okay. So,
No, thank you. I'm just loving it. Thank you.
okay, so I love you, and the answer is no is such an important balance, and you can keep dancing back and forth between those concepts. They're like, it's just not fair. I really wanted to go down that slide. Oh man, you did. You just really wanted to go down that slide, and she's having her turn, and we can go after her. But I want it. I want my turn. I hear you. You really want it. You really want your turn, and as soon as she's done, we will have our turn. So that's the dance you can use between the two sides of validation and keeping the boundary. If you don't have time to do that connection, the whoa, low, and slow, lots of people are like, but sometimes I just got to jump in there and be like, that's not okay. I want to challenge you on that. Again and again and again, I've seen it in my own life with my kids now, 8, 10 years of practice, and all of the hundreds of parents I work with every year. Again and again, the 10 to 30 seconds you take to slowly connect and name their feeling and say, wow, you're so angry. I see that you're angry. That is not how you wanted it to go, is often going to save you so much more time in the whole process. So this handout that I'm giving you, and I'll put it one more time in the link. And again, if you want to put in the comments your email right now, then I'll also make sure to email this to you so it doesn't get lost. This handout has 10 alternatives to nagging and yelling that get kids to be more likely to listen and not feel so angry and pushed around and more emotional. And then also in this handout, there is some more discussion around how you can elaborate these feeling statements, like you seem, feeling word because, and you could elaborate, you seem really angry because you thought you should be next on the slide and you wish that you could be on the slide right now. Those 3 parts, teaching them this is kind of, we call it bugs and wishes. That's a great template for 2-year-olds. And some examples here, and then a refrigerator reminder about the true empathy is seeing out their eyes, listening with their ears, and feeling with another's heart. All right. I would love if you are willing to just reflect on what's one top thing that you're taking away from our short 30 minutes that we've had here together. No, it's been fast and furious, but if there's one thing you're going to start or stop doing because of what you've just heard in this half hour, would you put it in the chat box just to reflect and be able to share for yourself? Making sure that I copy down all of the emails I'm seeing put in the chat so that I can get it. Lastly, I'll say that I did record this. And so if you're like, ooh, I have a friend that I wish had heard this, you can reach out to me at contact Flora at Sustainable Parenting and let me know who that person is. I will send you the link for this replay so you could share it with others as well. Things that people are putting in the comments. Thank you so much. I'm going to get the emotion chart and make a wheel of choices and getting a feeling wheel and creating that. Thank you for the handout. Thank you. And replay also. All right. Well, I have all of your contact information. Again, sorry this was fast and furious in 30 minutes, but if you'd like to follow up more, my website is sustainableparenting.com, and I offer group coaching and one-on-one coaching that is a way to really quickly give you the shortest sustainable tips so you start feeling more joy and ease in your time with your kiddos. Thanks so much for being here, and I hope to cross paths with you again sometime soon. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.